Thank you so much to everyone joining. Welcome to our Neurodivergent Planner Circle call. We appreciate your support, and we hope that this presentation, I know for a fact that this presentation will be very useful to you and will empower you as a financial planner. And if you are neurodivergent, like I am, and most of the people in this call are, it will be empowering to you. So today we have a very special guest, our friend Aubrey Williams. He is a financial planner working out of Santa Barbara, California. His firm called um, Financial is an advice-only firm. I learned about Aubrey by listening to a really great podcast he recorded with Cody Garrett, and I reached out and I invited him, and he has been so kind to be with us today, and we appreciate him being with us here. He's a graduate in mechanical engineering from the University of Maryland. He also has a master's in mechanical engineering from MIT, and he also has a master's in business administration MBA from George Washington University. We're very happy to have him here. He will be talking to us about what to do, to guide to starting your day on the work that matters the most as a person with ADHD. And this is something that speaks a lot to my heart, and I know to a lot of people it will, because I think that struggles. Before just giving the microphone to our friend Aubrey, just to tell everyone, the Neurodivergent Planner Circle will have a live session at the upcoming FPA annual conference in November 3 to 5. I invite you, if you can go ahead and start making plans. We'll have a great session there, and it's going to be a great annual conference. So last one that we did, we had a great time. So we look forward in seeing you there. Well, without any more delays, let me give it over to Aubrey. Aubrey, thank you so much. You can take it over from here.
Thank you very much, Otto. Thank you, Nick. Thank you to everyone who's here and who's watching this at a later date. I'm grateful to be able to share this with you, and that I was asked, and that there even is a neurodivergent knowledge circle, planner circle, is something I'm so grateful for. So thank you to everyone who made that possible. You'll see a QR code. You can use your phone or other device. You can have the slides right now. It'll be in a PDF if you want to follow along. I'll also have the QR code at the end. So to give folks a chance to do that, I also start every meeting with every client and every other planner that I collaborate with the invocation that is the source of the name of my firm, Open Path Financial. So I will do that now. I'm a member of the Apache, Chiricahua, and Dendahi Nedni tribe by ancestry, among other ancestries. This particular invocation is not from that lineage. It's from the Ubanda Afro-Brazilian religion, and I sought permission to use it, both to say it and to have it be the name of my firm. Health in the body, peace in the spirit, love in the heart. It is this that we wish for ourselves, and it is this that we wish for all our sisters and our brothers. Health in the body, peace in the spirit, love in the heart, open paths. Thank you. Okay, here we go. So we're talking about how to begin, and this is roughly the order of how we're gonna look at that. And if you think that I have this solved and figured out and licked, that's the first notion I have to disabuse you of. Because even for this very presentation, I struggled with every single bit of what I'm about to share you. So this could not be more alive for me in this moment than it is. This is absolutely alive. So I am living this, and that's why I feel competent to speak to it. So what's the problem? That's where we'll start. But first, Otto gave a little introduction. I'm going to quickly tell you a little about myself. My father was an anthropologist, my mother a modern dancer, and so that meant that we moved quite a lot. I grew up for a significant, decent part of my childhood in the town of Mitla, Oaxaca. I lived in a 2-room adobe house with no running water. I took care of cows, chickens, sheep, and it was a very different place to the home base in DC, which was Washington, DC. And one of the differences was money, one of the big differences. And in both places, people lived full and beautiful lives, sometimes with great difficulty and heartbreak. and also triumphs and celebrations and joy. But in Mexico, a couple $100s could mean the difference between having a roof or a place that was warm and safe and clean, and meant that people lived and died because of access to medicine or shelter. So that was an early lesson for a 4-year-old. I lived in Finland. I was mentioning to Otto, I worked in Denmark at one point, designing engines for container ships. That was fascinating. So had some interesting life experiences. I also traveled with my dad as his translator when I was 16, pretty widely in South America. He called me his translator, but really he was going deaf because he was a veteran of World War II and a top gunner in a B-17, and he had lost his hearing because of firing twin 50 caliber machine guns as an 18-year-old. So I was his translator in that I could hear. He spoke great Spanish. As I grew up, I think I'm genetically contrary, because with a dad who's an anthropologist and a mom who's a dancer, I had to go and be an engineer. And I went to MIT. I got into the particle physics world. This is a gyroclystron, which is a magnetic resonance microwave amplifier that's used to power linear accelerators like the Stanford Linear Accelerator. And then I got into infrared technology. This is a hummingbird, which is very common here in Santa Barbara. And for an infrared camera to be able to capture this with such sensitivity and high frame rate is a real achievement. And I was part of a company that developed that. And then I also worked in radar technologies, designing integrated circuits for that. I don't just bury my nose in the books. I also had a business teaching people how to move in the forest, move like a human, crawl, run, jump, lift logs, lift rocks, lift each other. And I'm an ADHDer and more. There's parts of autism spectrum disorder with me, twice exceptional Dabrowski overexcitabilities. So I'm a handful. And when I went through my divorce, I came out in really rough financial shape. And I tried to go to financial planners for help. The ones that I found did not help with what I needed help with. They were interested in investing the little bit of money I had left. And what I really needed help with was budget coaching at that time. Now I would know how to find that, but at the time I did not. And so what did help was the financial independence community. Jacob Lund-Fisker, Early Retirement Extreme, and Mr. Money Mustache. And this was just last week. I actually got the pleasure of being a speaker at a conference with him, and that's us together. So as I helped more and more people, first as a financial coach for free for friends, and then eventually a paid financial coach, I saw that some people were going to read the books and the blogs and watch the videos and listen to the podcasts, but others really did benefit and needed to speak to a real person. So I became the very thing that I had so much trouble with as a earlier in my life. I became a financial advisor, and now my firm is Open Path Financial. As Otto said, advice only, hourly financial planning, specifically for the financial independence community and the neurodiverse community and the overlap of the two. And maybe most fortunate, my partner Lauren is in my life. I love her with all my heart. And each year of my life just keeps getting better. Every birthday, I say, this is the best one yet. And I keep saying that. So I'm very grateful for her, for myself, for my life to be with you. Okay, why does this matter? It matters because to create something, it takes time, it takes space, it takes quiet, it takes rest. It also takes exhaustion sometimes, and boredom and solitude, collaboration, inspiration, consistency, the unexpected, and above all, play. There's a concept in Indian theology called the Leela and the Maya. And Leela is the concept that this world, this creation that we're all living in, is the play of the gods. So when we create, we can understand what we're doing at its highest level as play. And if you can't begin, then you can't create. So what doesn't work? Once I do this, then I'll begin. And I have a million thises: preparation, maintaining, organizing. I'll just get my inbox down to 0. Being helpful. I really respond to people. So if I'm trying to begin something that really matters, that's really meaningful, if someone comes and interrupts me, that's the best gift they'll ever give me, because I am so helpful. And if I just take care of this one thing, then I'll be able to relax. Or this is probably the most dangerous of all, expecting that if I just do this one more thing, I'll feel like starting. And I never do. It never works. So first, give up. My invitation is to give up on all of those. What helps start is to do a brain dump, to write absolutely everything down. Trust that it is written down. You will build this over time and begin. So why is this so hard? The best way I understand this is it's so hard to begin because as ADHDers, and this is true of some other neurodiversities also, we build castles in the sky that are more elaborate, more fantastic than we can even express. We can't even get out a 1/1000th of the ideas, the combinations, the alchemy that we create in our imagination. And when you're living your life and one of those castles that you've built matters, you care, it feels like you're working on this marble statue where if you make one wrong stroke, the whole thing is going to shatter and fall to the floor in a million pieces. But that's not actually what's going on. It's actually this. Even people who carve marble, I actually looked this up, they swing that hammer hard, and they even use a rasp like a woodworker to grind down the rough edges. So even marble, it's a very durable stone. And what we're working on, it might be a PowerPoint slide or a Word document or a spreadsheet or a whiteboard. There's absolutely no downside. There's the expression, I'm performing without a net. It's all net. And yet we feel like one wrong stroke will mean disaster. So now we will go into what helps. And the words are, they spell, and you'll see what they are, but they start with people, environment, cues, habits, and surrender. And they spell the word pecha. And in Spanish, pecho means chest, but pecha does not mean chest. But in Punjabi, pecha means entanglement. So one way to remember this is if pecha is entanglement, it is using these tools to escape the entanglement and begin. We've learned to mask. In our society, it is expected that it is easy to begin, and it is not for me. It is not perhaps for some of you. And so it's a thing we hide, we mask, we keep to ourselves. We say, I'll figure it out on my own, I'll catch up. And that might mean nights and weekends spent catching up in debt to the things you intended to begin earlier in the day. And your loved ones are probably very understanding, but it has consequences. And so when you can't begin, and these are women from the area where I grew up in Oaxaca, Mexico, using metates to turn corn, birdseed, into tortillas, involve another person immediately. We have deep social circuitry. It's not thousands or tens of thousands or even millions of years old. This is mammalian circuitry that's more than 200 million years old. Involve another person immediately. It works even though you think it won't. And I still experience this. I'm so resistant. And yet, when I do it, it works. I was able to complete a car repair, which required a blowtorch by using body doubling over a Zoom call. And it had gone undone for 18 months. And I finally gave up and stood that phone up on a tripod. And I replaced the front right suspension of my car, which had been rattling, buzzing, and driving me crazy for 18 months. Now, for some neurodiversities, talking to people might be uncomfortable or overwhelming. You don't even have to talk to them. Just being in the presence of other people with your headphones on is different than being by yourself. It's a reset. It turns on the circuitry. And maybe you don't have a coffee shop. This is a bit of a joke, but there's always interpretive dance. I saw probably more dance concerts before I was 4 years old than most people see in their whole life. So just keep that one in your back pocket. There's always interpretive dance. So the next is environment. Now, environment, it means both what's outside and inside, and we respond to our environment. If this is your external environment, there's all sorts of stimuli that are going to draw your attention to something other than that very, very, very important thing that it is you intend to begin. And it will feel good to pursue the things that are stimulating you. And then there's our internal environment. Even if you clear your desk and you get rid of your phone and it's quiet, if you like quiet, or there's the hum of people around you, if that helps you relax, your internal environment can be just as noisy. And having studied parts work, there isn't even just one in there. There are multiple parts talking and objecting or having conversations. And so there could be a coffee shop in your head at the same time. So learning to calm that, to say thank you for your help. This is what I intend to do. You can help best by supporting me in beginning this work. And what we're doing here is we're maximizing our signal to noise ratio. The things that we intend to begin are sometimes little whispers. And if our environment, whether internal or external, is too noisy, we can't hear them. So we have to turn it down. This is one of my favorite bands. The title of their album is Quiet is the New Loud. And if you're creating, if other people are banging on the keys of that piano that you're trying to tap out a song on, it's going to be real hard to hear the melody. So maximize your signal to noise ratio by turning down the noise in your environment. And then once the noise is lower, it's time to open. And I mean in absolutely every way. Literally open your ears. You can do so by lowering your jaw, open your throat, open your mind, open your heart, open your body. The title of this photograph is Quiet, and that's why I included it here. Everything about this photograph communicates stillness, quiet, and intense focus, and openness, and that's what we're creating. So clear your desk, banish your phone. It is no longer enough to silence it. It doesn't work. You have favorite contacts, it doesn't work, banish it. It goes over there. Mute your computer. Your computer has a lot of the same notifications that your phone does. If you're using your computer to create, you have to mute it. And in all ways, make space inside and outside and in all dimensions, open and quiet. Next, we'll talk about cues. So in case you're wondering, we are all Pavlov. We are all creating the experiment that is our experience, the cues that we respond to. But we're also Pavlov's dog. And that's really one of his dogs taxidermied, and that's the drool collector that they use to measure their experiments. So when we're Pavlov, we're teaching others, and you can teach others how to help you begin once you learn. You can make requests, teach them how to help. And then we can also teach ourselves. Now, this one I discovered by accident, writing my thesis at MIT. I was there 2 years. I had not written anything, and I had 2 months until it was due. The only CD in the graduate student lab was this one. I didn't love Dire Straits, but it was the only CD, and I played that sucker probably 700 times. So now, as I did last night when I created this presentation, I put on Dire Straits, and I create, I begin. So find your Dire Straits brothers in arms. It may take some experimentation, it may happen by accident, but you can teach yourself to begin with cues. Next, habits. There's a misconception that motivation is what you need to get started. And I credit this to my ADHD coach, Aaron Croft. It's the other way around. Movement creates momentum. And this is the equation for momentum. Momentum is mass times velocity. And just in case you're wondering, you are the mass in this equation. My mass has varied somewhat over my life, but I've got that one taken care of. And consistent momentum creates motivation. This is a baker in Morocco. He doesn't make his own bread. He bakes the bread that other people make every day, and he has to keep track of which bread belongs to whom. And so when you create consistent motivation with habits, you do so by doing the same thing at the same time with the same tools in the same place, and begin again and again and again. For most people, this works best as the first thing they do in the morning, once whatever the start of your day is. But for some chronotypes, that is not in the morning. So you can learn that about yourself. But when it is the beginning of your most creative, productive period, use habits in the same time, the same tools, in the same place. And I've given a lot of tools. And if you're anything like me as an ADHD person, you have a collection of tools that rivals any master mechanics. You aren't lacking for tools. And so this last tool, which really isn't a tool, is when all of the other tools don't work. And that's surrender. And it really is the ultimate tool. Luke Skywalker, who is a character in Star Wars, I'm not even sure I need to say that, but I'm going to say it. He's a really interesting character because he's not very good at many of the things he does. He's too old, and his teachers don't really want to teach him. And in this scene, which is when he's facing the two most destructive, psychopathic, megalomaniacal people, one of whom is his father, he fails. He can't do it. And yet, something different happened other than losing. There was nothing he could do to overcome them with tools, techniques, with training, with power. There wasn't any harder that he could try. He threw away his weapon and he surrendered. And in surrendering and giving up, he is teaching us that we are not always in control, that sometimes the way to begin, to create a new beginning, as he did for his father and for himself, is to surrender. So when all the other tools run out, and for me, this was about 7:30 p.m. last night, when I finally gave up, I was able to begin. You may not be in control of your situation. You may not be able to turn on all the tools, although practicing helps, but you're always in control of yourself. Just like Luke, he had a choice, and he chose to surrender, and he didn't have a plan. That was the plan. Give up, relax, and begin. When you let go, when you have nothing left to lose, that is sometimes what it takes to begin. So, how to begin? People, environment, cues, habits, and surrender. Today is the day you begin. Every single day. So with my love and gratitude, my brotherhood, thank you. Thank you to each of you who are here, who are listening, who are watching. Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that special presentation, Aubrey. Let's we don't have any questions on the chat, but everyone can add their questions in the chat and we can start reading them. This adds a lot of clarity for me, for example, because I do struggle a lot in the mornings. I do a lot of stuff. I have a special needs daughter who I do a lot of things in the morning, and it's a busy morning, and sometimes I'm not feeling my best to then start working and start looking at and things like that. I ask you, Aubrey, we all have different personalities, and we all have different circumstances. What do you think is the key for success, regardless of whatever variable there is out there? And you definitely have given us various keys to it, but what do you think would be like the trump card, right, to really go, get over the hump with these challenges?
Yeah, the way I understand that best is much of the challenge that I face, that we face as neurodiverse people, is that the way we are is different than the way others believe we should be, others believe we should be able to do, and we've internalized that. The antidote to that is to surround yourself, as we are right now, with people who have shared experiences and can offer compassion and understanding, and teach yourself to offer that to yourself. And the fruit of that healing is being as intensely powerful yourself as you can be, letting go of the guilt, the shame, the why can't I just language. I like to tell people it's okay to observe the way you had difficulty with things in the past, but always say it in the past tense, because that's not what's happening now. I see a
See the,
question.
yes,
Go
go ahead.
ahead, Otto, if you want to.
Yeah, Aubrey, what books can you recommend on cues and habits?
Um, there's some well-known ones, but the one that comes to mind is Atomic Habits. However, it takes some special interpretation from the perspective of the neurodiverse person. And so there's a lot of books, that one included, that are written for a general audience. They have to be. And so I would not be afraid to adapt and modify the techniques. And I have had to myself. And this is some of that. What I shared is some of that. Other than that, the other one that I've read recently that I found very helpful was the book Time Anxiety by Chris Guillebeau. I think that's his name. It's definitely Guillebeau. And the other one is 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. Neither is written specifically for an ADHD or neurodiverse audience, but I feel like both of those, Time Anxiety by Guillebeau and 4,000 Weeks by Burkeman, even if they aren't saying so out loud, they are more adapted to the more common challenges for people with ADHD. So those would be my three recommendations.
Yeah, those are good ones for sure. Next question says, could you explain how your ADHD has helped you in the past and what they help you do on a continuing basis?
Yeah. Is the question how ADHD has helped me, or because it says that is it an ADHD coach or just my ADHD?
It says your ADHD.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to answer both. How has my ADHD helped me in the past? When I have been able to plug into structure, it has been helpful. It operates sort of like a board game in that I'm able to pay intense attention to the rules and then maximize results within those rules. Sometimes at the same time minimizing the effort that I have to put forth. And that's both a help and a hindrance, because there are lots of systems, and school is one of them, at least schools with grades, where there are ways to do very well and get good grades and win the board game that are not necessarily conducive to deep learning. And so I noticed a transition from grade school, where my learning was at its peak, and it declined in junior high school, and undergraduate college. And it was only in grad school, when I only had to take 2 classes at a time, that learning really reemerged as something that was rich and not just a game to be won. When I haven't been able to plug into a structure, and the graduate thesis is an example of that, I have been in extreme distress because of this problem of how to begin. And I didn't know that I was ADHD until 2019. So I didn't understand what was going on. It was very upsetting. It's still upsetting sometimes. So in those situations, what often happens is there's a long period of intense frustration and suffering, and then a birth of creativity and ideas once it's finally able to emerge, that's exciting. And this study has been part of my life's work to grow that time and experience that's so pleasurable and exciting into more of my life.
That's awesome. And so Murphy did clarify. He also was referring to the coach. How has a coach, ADHD coach, helped you?
Interesting. The coach I referred to, his name is Aaron Croft, and I learned about him on his YouTube channel, which is Hidden ADHD, which refers to the inattentive subtype of ADHD, which is predominant for me, inattentive, although I exhibit on occasion some of the hyperactive characteristics, but predominantly inattentive. And what was most powerful about working with him at first was just finding someone who understood the dynamics of it, because he had similar experiences. He had been the valedictorian of his high school class and then almost failed out of Harvard twice, and then but he did graduate from Harvard, and then was unemployed and broke and divorced. And, he went through it. And it was that same pattern of structure versus no structure. In high school, he had older siblings who had gone through the same high school, so he was known, and he had people to study with and a program to follow. But that didn't end up being the most beneficial part of working with him. It was the community that he built. And I was there pretty early when it was just one-on-one coaching, and then the community started to build. And the community of people that I just know online, that environment of compassion and understanding and common experience has been more healing and helpful and productive for me because of the ability to share successes that other people in the neurotypical world would not understand as a success. Like, I worked on the thing that I intend to begin for 5 minutes this morning. And you see people cheering and fire emojis, and because sometimes that really is a struggle, and that is absolutely a victory. And these folks get it. So it ended up being the community of people with similar experiences that was the benefit of working with the ADHD coach, which I did not expect.
That's awesome to hear. I need to get one myself. I really and do it. And a question from Sarah: do you have any special practices or tools you apply when working with clients who are also neurodivergent?
Yes, absolutely. And that was the topic of the interview that I did with Cody Garrett. And it's available on his podcast, which is on all the podcast platforms, Measure Twice Planners. He has a couple of different brands, but they're all called Measure Twice. It's Measure Twice Money, Measure Twice Planners. It's one of those. And his name, Cody Garrett, Garrett. But I will answer your question if you want to hear a longer version of the answer. When working with neurodiverse clients, obviously there's many different types of neurodiversities. So ADHD, even within ADHD, there are a variety. So I started solving my own problems. And as I worked with more clients with autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, sensory integration processing disorders, and a few more, I had to add to the tool sets, and they were different, opposite in some cases. But as an example, I'll give a quick example. In the financial advising world, budget coaching world, financial independence world, there's a lot of encouragement to automate your finances, to pay yourself first, to make a standard 5%, 20%, 50% contribution to your brokerage account, your 401k, to have your credit cards on auto pay, and so forth. And many people with ADHD do pay a steep ADHD tax for missed payments. So that might seem like a good idea, but I have found that it is not the place to start. The place to start is intense manual engagement with transactions. If the person I'm working with is working on budgeting and spending, we look at every transaction and understand it. Often a lot of the challenge is for people overwhelm and emotions that are attached to these transactions, and so they don't want to look at them. And so you can understand it as progressive desensitization to some extent, Also, being with someone, it's not emotionally charged for me, so that can have a calming effect. And by learning to be with what is without any intention to change it at first, and just looking over and over again and scheduling each bill payment manually, that builds comfort, it builds confidence, and it builds understanding of what happens. And then once that's solid, once the person has deep trust in themselves that they can handle seeing anything, they can handle paying anything, then and only then do we automate some things. And some things we don't. Like one I often recommend people don't automate is your cable or internet bill, because they have a habit of kicking you off the promotion and then suddenly your bill is $60 more. So that's the time to call and negotiate. But that's one of those counterintuitives where you'd think, oh, automation would help lower the ADHD tax. Yes, eventually, once we build awareness and comfort and diminish the overwhelm.
That is a great and interesting approach. I pasted, I added to the chat the podcast with Cody Garrett, so for everyone to be able to access it. The next question is, how would you approach stress/anxiety in the workplace, especially when those around you are in ADHDers or neurodivergent themselves and have experience working with people with ADHD like us?
Yeah. So I lived this. I worked in a corporate environment at Fortune 100 companies, Lockheed and Raytheon, which were not very progressive, at least at first, saying something like, I experience ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and these are all true for me, by the way, depression, anxiety, insomnia. I did not feel safe doing that. And so I didn't for many years. And it took a terrible toll. I had to take a 5-month medical leave of absence in 2023, and it didn't help because I knew I was going back. There weren't any jerks. It was a very friendly and welcoming environment, and there was even a neurodiversity Teams chat across the whole 100,000 person company where people shared things. And I'm glad that was there, but it didn't help. What did help eventually was building my confidence to set boundaries. And just like I talked about with the ADHD community, to know what was a win for me. So maybe it should be easy to schedule a meeting a week from now with 4 or 5 people. On some days, it was really, really hard. And I'd come home and tell my partner, who's neurotypical, I scheduled a meeting today. It was amazing. I did it. And at first, she's like, oh, was that a bad day? That sounds like you didn't do much. So I had to teach over time, just as I said, we teach others how to help us begin. No, that's good. That's a victory. That's a triumph. The second part is often there are a very small number of activities that are highly valuable. And you probably heard this called the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. And so when I had the idea I had to do everything in the best possible way, that was crushing and draining. When I picked very carefully the things I chose to do with my limited energy and attention, that helped.
Okay, so that's, yeah, you see, and that's just the thing, right? For us that have ADHD, for a lot of us, not everyone, right? And if you hear my daughter, that's my daughter in the back of the car. Sorry, everyone. I'm a little
No
bit
need to
vocal today.
apologize. I'm so glad she's there.
And she's neurodiverse herself. She has autism. So, um, I think, the big challenge I see personally, let's say, is that ebb and flow of energy and focus, right? And sometimes I'm just bringing it. I'm really intense. I have all this energy. I have all these ideas. I have all these focus, and then it just dies down, or it switches. And great days, amazing days, and then the next day is just they do see for some reason or another. Um, those are the challenges that we have. So We still have a little bit of time for the call. We have about 10 more minutes. If you have any other questions, you can add them to the chat, or you can, feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question to Aubrey. He's still here, able to share his wisdom with us. But do you
I
experience
can
it?
comment on what you just shared, but
Sure, go ahead.
I want to allow a second in case someone has a question. I'll make sure to speak to what you just described because it's very interesting. So Elizabeth Cervantes asks, how can we stay connected with you? I'm on all the socials, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, and I tend to just post the same stuff everywhere. So, because I know people tend to gather in different places. I have my website. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can send me an email, and you can also just put something on my calendar if you want to talk. I love talking to people. So one of the ways I've managed that is I created a monthly 1 hour Ask Me Anything, because my mentoring workload, which does not pay cash money, was eclipsing my client workload, which does pay cash money. And so anyone is very welcome to come to that. Sometimes it's one person, sometimes it's been 4 or 5. Just send me an email if you'd like to participate in that. So Otto, what you described, I absolutely experienced. And one of the pitfalls I fell into, and I think other people did who were around me, is that I set the bar to the exceptional days. If I can do that once, why can't I do that all the time? And if you look at any natural system, there are almost none that are at a constant level of whatever it is that system is doing. Predator and prey populations ebb and flow in a dynamic homeostasis. And so do we. Now, our peaks and valleys sometimes are a little more dramatic than other people, but we have daily rhythms and weekly rhythms and monthly rhythms with hormones and who knows what else. And so something that was very healing for me was setting the bar low, but I don't even think of it as low anymore, that making progress in a day is to be celebrated. And I follow some of the advice in a book you see behind me, The Gap and the Gain. It was written by Hardy and Dan Sullivan, Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. And Dan Sullivan is a entrepreneurship coach, typically to entrepreneurs who are in the $100 million plus range. And they were miserable as a group because their sights were set on the horizon and they weren't there. And of course, you're never there. And what he teaches is to always measure backwards. Imagine your high school self when you thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I can move out of my parents' place? And maybe you did. And wouldn't it be amazing if I made $20,000, which is a huge amount of money to a high schooler? And maybe you did. Or whatever other accomplishments you've made. Your present self is the dream of your younger self. And so he teaches these 100 millionaire entrepreneurs to measure backwards, write down 3 gains each day. It's sort of similar to a gratitude journal, but it's not the same. 3 things you did that moved something forward that you care about, however small, and let that be the bar that you measure yourself against. And you can always find something, you really can. And when your attention is on that, you're building yourself up instead of comparing yourself to an unattainable horizon that you'll never reach.
I love that. And what you just said about that, where we're living today is what we dream about, some time ago. That's a great construct, right? To a great framework for us just feel fulfilled today versus just always comparing ourselves, versus what can happen in the future, right? And we do have certainty in the present. Our right now is who we are, right? The future is still to be determined, hopefully more positive than negatively, right? But I love that. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm gonna get that book. I read another book by them about the future self, and I loved it. I thought it was a great book. I'll get that one also. Mary Ellen, hi Mary Ellen. she asked, are there certain occupations that are more difficult to be, operate in than highly technical jobs? Marielle, if you want to mute yourself and just clarify your question, if you want.
I think I understand it, but yes, you're very welcome to unmute, Marianne. Love to hear you.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering about, certain jobs that would be more difficult. I have a relative, he's in water treatment, but that's, a lot of science and operations and that kind of thing. He seems to be really good at that part of it. I think it's the people that he works with that are difficult to that he struggles with sometimes. So, but I just was curious in terms of just highly technical jobs, if that's more difficult for someone like that to operate in.
Yeah, an example that comes to mind. This is a real person. He was a trial lawyer and worked for a firm, and this was his particular flavor of ADHD, but the intensity of the preparation served him, and it was highly technical, but he had a system to plug into, and there were expectations and workflows because he worked at a larger firm and there were paralegals and so forth. And when he opened his own practice that was not trial, he left that structure behind and had a really, really hard time because he had to create it all himself. And so what comes to mind from what you shared about the person you described is the technical part may have clear expectations and timelines and ways to do things, whereas the people in politics is a little more fluid, and there isn't an instruction manual and a series of operations for that. So at least with ADHD, I found that structure can help, even though it can help, but some of us are rigidity rebels at the same time. So it can help, and you might also resent it. I have that experience. So, and of course, it varies by the individual. I think it is important, like we were talking about, if the demands of the job are at the very top of a person's capacity and they're expected to perform them all the time at that level, then that might not be a good fit, because that's not a characteristic of a person with ADHD, at least. Some other neurodiversities, certain flavors of autism spectrum disorder, that actually might be a great fit. That's what comes to mind.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great perspective. Great perspective. Thank you so much, Aubrey, for that. Aubrey, I think you're fine sharing the slides, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so everyone that wants these slides, if you want to go ahead and drop your email in the chat, and I'll make sure I collect the slides from Aubrey, and I'll send the slides. I can forward the slides to you. So go ahead now, before we finish the call, just drop your email in the chat, and then I'll get the transcript from and I'll forward you the slides from him if you're interested.
If for some reason you slips by you, I believe Otto shared my LinkedIn profile, and you can look me up and I'll send them to you also.
There you go. Yep. So the LinkedIn profile link is there also, so feel free to go ahead and connect now with them. This really has been wonderful, Aubrey. Thank you so very much for being with us, for taking the time. You're a busy guy, and we appreciate the great knowledge you've shared with us, the great wisdom, and being open about your experience and being open about your struggles. We really appreciate that, and I think all that, and the people who will access this recording after, just remember that, right? Everyone, just remember that this is going to be recorded and it's going to be shared by tomorrow in the FPA website. So if you want to share this with someone else, you can, get the link tomorrow. And if there are FPA members, they're going to be able to access it. Sarah's asking, can we also get a list of recommended books? So if you want, Aubrey, you can send me a brief list of books that you recommend, that you have mentioned, and I'll share also that along with the slides for everyone.
I'll put it in the slides. How about that?
Oh, there you go. Even better.
Yeah.
So there you go. So, so thank you so very much, Aubrey, for being with us. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for everyone into the call, for your support, and we look forward to our next call in the month of September. And if you are, thinking about going to the annual conference in Las Vegas in November 3 to the 5th, we encourage you to make those plans, and we will have a live session of the Neurodivergent Planner Circle there. So we appreciate you all. Wishing you a great summer. Aubrey, take care, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you later. Take care.
All right, take care. Thank you, Otto. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone who's here.